I want to start with artificial intelligence. Mike Davis by phone. Mike, the EO, what the executive order did was set up that you're going to have a federal framework right now and a process which David Sachs is essentially going to oversee or run. This is far from defeat because they basically concede your four C's have to be part of this. I actually think it's got to be even broader than that. But just walk me through your thoughts right now, the EO, the morning after, as we get to start the hard work, sir.
So I do think it was a productive first step with this executive order that the tech bros have understood that they can't just get federal preemption and no federal rules of the road, which means federal amnesty. So that this EO sets up where there's going to be a legislative task force that comes up with legislation that provides federal preemption but addresses the four C's that we care about: children, conservatives, communities, and creators. And so that's a big win for the Article 3 project and the War Room Posse, that we're very much at the table and driving this process. So that's good. There are some issues with the EO.
Hang on. Just take a second and explain to people the fight. The initial fight was they wanted total amnesty, absolutely nothing, and really no really even regulatory apparatus at all. Just accelerationists. They didn't get preemption because this says there's going to be a federal regulatory apparatus. And they specifically, I think it needs to be broader than the four C's, but they very specifically add the four C's in there to show that specifically has to be taken care of, right? So moving in, is this all part of a negotiating process? We've gone from AI amnesty and leading to, if it's preemption, it's got to have a federal regulatory apparatus around it because the states, quite frankly, got to say so here, and they're never going to agree to it, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And that's a major win. Because remember, 4 months ago in the big, beautiful bill, at 2 o'clock in the morning, this was heading to victory. It was going to be included. This AI amnesty was going to be included in the big, beautiful bill. And it ended up going down 99-1, including Ted Cruz, the lead sponsor, voting against his own legislation after the War Room Posse went into action and lit up the Senate and let people know that we're not supporting AI amnesty. And so here we are 4 months later. There was talk about putting this AI amnesty into the National Defense Authorization Act. The War Room Posse teams up with the Article 3 project, and we lit up the Senate again, and they backed down. And then they are very much going to address the four C's because they know they have to, because we've created that political frame. So they have to address these four C's, or they know they're not going to get federal preemption. So this is a big win for the Article 3 project. It's a big win for the War Room Posse. Frankly, it's a big win for President Trump, because this would not have gone well for President Trump if they would have won. These AI bros would have won and got amnesty. And then, for example, you have these AI platforms with teddy bears that are talking sexually explicitly to kids, pedo bears. The states can't do anything about it, and there's federal preemption and no federal rules of the road. That would have ended badly for President Trump. So these four C's are going to be good for everyone, including especially President Trump.
I think that he realized after the two face plants, because what Sachs tried to slide into the big beautiful bill and to the NDAA was absolutely open field running. There would be no controls whatsoever over the accelerationists and AI. And I think President Trump, and you can see his handprints on this in crafting the thing, that you got to have some sort of federal regulatory apparatus. Now, let's talk about DeSantis and Newsom. California's put some laws up. I think they got SB 53, which is kind of broader in context. That's really where they want to know where the companies are going, et cetera. DeSantis has really stuck, I think, more to the four C's What is going to happen now at the state level? What is your, because DeSantis, these guys are not going to back off, right? A lot of these governors are saying, hey, we have a responsibility here to protect our citizens. And, we're not that, we don't believe David Sachs and this crowd, Mark Andreessen, put the citizens of our state first, particularly children and creators, sir.
That's just it. I mean, look, I get the point that the tech pros are making, that you have these terrible laws like in Colorado, where I live, where they're essentially, they want woke AI, they want DEI AI, they want censorship against conservatives. They actually want their AI machines, their algorithms, to pump out DEI and woke nonsense. And so I get the tech bros' concerns about that if you have to, you have, in order to comply with Colorado statute, you have to change your algorithms. And so it creates a bad outcome. And so I'm not totally opposed to preemption. I get why they would want a one rule of the road for them, but they have to have a rule of the road. They have to address, at a minimum, they have to address the 4 C's in order to make sure. Look, as you know, Steve, we tried this with the tech pros. We gave them Section 230 amnesty, 20 years ago, or almost 20 years ago, and look what it led to. It led to Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple that crushed competition, shuttered small businesses, and canceled conservatives and others with whom they disagreed. They became, these big tech platforms became trillion-dollar monopolists that did the government's bidding and did the Democrats' bidding. We're not going to let that happen again. And so we're going to proceed more cautiously, more smartly with AI than we did under Section 230. And I think that this legislative framework.
Hang on for 1 second. We're going to take a short break. Mike Davis, you're walking us through the process that we are engaged in right now. Continue on, sir.
So, I mean, I think that they finally concede among the AI crowd that in order for them to get preemption, they have to address the 4 C's. And so this is total victory for the Article 3 project and the War Room Posse. We won. We're at the negotiating table. We're working with President Trump's AI team, and we proposed legislation, and we're working on that. And to their credit, to David Sachs's credit, and the AI team's credit, they're working with us in good faith, right? I don't think it was malicious what they were doing before. I don't think they were maliciously trying to screw us. I just don't think that they, have been around Washington D.C. or the legislative process very much. And so this is probably a new thing for David Sachs to come to Washington and deal with the swamp. And I do think he's trying to work with us in good faith. I don't think he's a bad person. I actually kind of like him. I disagree with him. I disagree with him on all this tech bro stuff, but he's not a bad guy.
So in the 100 pages of proposals you gave them, your point is it was too late to incorporate that into what they were trying to do, the NDA. So they stepped back. This process, you're highly confident that, because the 100 pages is just a start, but it's pretty substantive on the 4 C's. You believe, or you're comfortable telling the audience that some version of this you believe is going to be in there, and you're going to have to do it anyway, or DeSantis and these guys are going to be taking it to court and slowing it down?
Well, I mean, if they don't address the 4 C's, they're not going to get federal preemption because we'll crush them again like we did the last 2 times. And so, and I told them that. I said, if you want preemption, you're going to address the 4 C's. Otherwise, you're not going to get preemption. So they get it. And I think that unless they have our blessings with the Article 3 project in the War Room, I don't see any path where any legislation would pass.
I want to shift to Tina Peters for a second, because the Viceroy has been one of the folks working on this also with many, many other people. President Trump did go through the pardon process on a federal level. And of course, immediately, I think he had the Attorney General, we played it in the cold open, saying this is irrelevant, this is a state, but it's much more complicated than that. Is it not, Mike? And there are alternatives people are pursuing right now to make sure that we can free Tina Peters?
It is outrageous what is happening to Tina Peters. She was a county clerk in Colorado, again, where I live, and the Democrat Attorney General Phil Weiser and the Democrat Secretary of State Jenna Griswold, two partisan monsters, teamed up with the local DA and this local judge, and they put Tina Peters in prison for 9 years. So they can come up with any excuse they want for doing this, but it came down to this. Tina Peters questioned election results, and these Democrat operatives and their weak Republican rhinos who went along with this, that's what it comes down to. This is a malicious prosecution. It is heartless. It is inhumane. It's just awful. She was a 69-year-old woman who they put in prison for 9 years. Now they have her in solitary confinement, that she's getting abused by other prisoners. She's being abused in this prison. I mean, they have her in solitary confinement, and they're saying they're doing that to protect her, according to Tina Peters' allies who have reached out to me. It's sickening what they're doing to her. This is effectively a death penalty for Tina Peters because she dared to question election results, and it's sick. And so the president cannot pardon Tina Peters for state crimes. That has to come from the governor of Colorado. And so even if this Democrat governor, Jared Polis, does not want to pardon her, he can at least commute Tina Peters' sentence. She's suffered enough. She's dying in prison. They're killing her in prison. And so that's one thing the War Room Posse can do, is go to article3project.org, article number 3project.org, and one of the action items is to contact Governor Jared Polis and tell him to show some decency and commute Tina Peters' sentence. She's suffered enough in prison. We don't need to kill this woman just because they have political disagreement.
Not to get too far ahead of things, but it is, they took her up on state because they realized in federal she would, if there was federal charges, ultimately, if we got back in power, she could be pardoned. But Griswold's got dirty hands here at a federal level, right? Isn't a lot of this about the preservation of records and records about the 2020 stolen election, the process for all of that? And Griswold herself is dirty here, and I'm sure that's being looked at by a number of people, sir.
Griswold is a malicious partisan slob, and she should really be ashamed of herself. I don't think she's capable of shame because she's such a terrible human being. But what Jenna Griswold did here to Tina Peters is it's monstrous. Jenna Griswold is a partisan slob, and it's disgusting what she's done here. And yes, we should. I'm very happy that the Attorney General Pam Bondi and Harmeet Dillon, the head of the Civil Rights Division, opened up an investigation on the Colorado prison system, and that's almost certainly going to include the mistreatment of Tina Peters in these Colorado prisons.
Mike, one last topic, and thank you for taking time away to join us by phone. But you saw what happened in Indianapolis last night. But this is inextricably linked with the progress we're making on getting legislation and nominees. We got Mark Walker, who's going to be on the show right after you bounce. That's been, I think, 8 or 9 months and hasn't been confirmed yet. This issue about blue slips. I know Senator Grassley's working through this right now, but this issue about blue slips and the issue about the filibuster, because, and I think President Trump has been adamant about this, unless some things change, he's not going to be able to implement his plan. And you got both the blue slips for the judges and really for the U.S. attorneys, and you've got this, you got the situation of the filibuster. Can you take the blue slips first and explain what it is to the audience and why President Trump wants changes and why he's so upset about it?
Look, and I get that. I've been fighting with people all night on X and all morning on this issue. I hate blue slips. I got rid of blue slips for circuit judges when I was the chief counsel for nominations 8 years ago. When I worked for Senator Grassley, we got rid of blue slips for circuit judges. And so that's how President Trump was able to confirm a record number of circuit judges. I tried to get rid of blue slips for U.S. Attorney, U.S. District Court, U.S. Marshal, but there was way too much opposition in the Senate to getting rid of those, including from too many Republicans. And that's the issue. What angers me is when people are blaming this on Chuck Grassley, my old boss. This is not a Chuck Grassley problem. It is a Senate Republican problem. And so what needs to happen is if we want to get rid of these blue slips for U.S. Attorney, U.S. District Court, U.S. Marshal, John Thune needs to work with the Trump White House and round up 50 signatures, at least 50 signatures from Senate Republicans, including every Senate Judiciary Republican, saying that they will vote to confirm U.S. Attorney, U.S. District Court, U.S. Marshal nominees who lack blue slips. Right? That is going to be a very tall order, because here's the problem: too many Senate Republicans do not want to give up their blue slip power. So but to blame Grassley for this is what really pisses me off, because it's not Grassley's fault. He doesn't have the votes. If you have Senator John Kennedy, for example, or Senator Tom Tillis saying they're going to vote against these nominees who lack blue slips, then Grassley can't get them out of the committee.
But by the way, just for the audience, blue slips is the way that senators in their states for U.S. attorneys, U.S. marshals, and certain judges can actually override the president's choice, correct?
I hate blue slips. It's a BS 100-year-old plus tradition in the Senate where home state senators get an absolute veto over the president's pick for U.S. Attorney, U.S. District Court, U.S. Marshal. And I say this somewhat jokingly, but it's not really a joke. These home state senators do not want to give up the ability to hand select the U.S. Attorney who could prosecute them, the U.S. District Court judge who would oversee the trial, and the U.S. Marshal who would escort them to prison. Again, I hate blue slips. We need to get rid of them. But if we want to be smart and actually win, we should actually direct our energy to fixing the problem instead of directing our energy to dividing the Republican Party and going after President Trump's most effective Senate ally, Chuck Grassley.
We got about 30 seconds. You're a traditionalist, but you agree that we got to get rid of the filibuster and we have to do it now?
There's no question we need to get rid of the filibuster for legislation. We got rid of the filibuster for nominations. Now you can get nominees confirmed with, 51 votes or 50 votes in the VP. We need to do the same thing with legislation. It currently requires 60 votes to pass most legislation. I would say to Senate Republicans, don't be stupid here. The next time Democrats control the White House, and Senate, they are going to nuke the legislative filibuster. They're going to add states like Puerto Rico, like D.C. They're going to pack the Supreme Court. It's going to be goodbye America if we let that happen. Let's beat them to it so they can't control all three branches.
The Viceroy, thank you very much.